The only podcast that's done in one take with no edits.
Yes.
Anytime you hear that theme music, Lorenzo is playing it live.
Yes. I have a piano strapped to my fingers.
It's an amazing piano.
Yes. All right, let's go. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everyone.
We're back.
So Fresh, So Prince.
Yes.
The greatest podcast talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Air.
It's a pretty easy claim for us to make. Nobody else is doing it.
And nobody dare challenge us.
Exactly. If you want to challenge us, members of the So Fresh Army will come after you.
Come and try.
I don't know what they're going to do, but they will come after you.
Yeah, just as long as they don't know the home address or where we are. You know, just don't drop any Foursquare pins or anything like that.
Cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is excellent. We love it when you cyber stalk us.
More specifically, Andrew. I'm like 89% fan of it, but you know.
We take what we can get, you know? Yeah. You guys are showing up, you guys are listening. If we're giving you that part of us, we just have to recognize that you're going to take some of that away.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. See, he's more like my moral compass on some days.
If I'm your moral compass, then I think you're pretty screwed.
I never said I wasn't screwed. I'm just saying. You just steer me away from death, you know? I like to play on that fine line.
That's fair. No, we're going to keep you alive. You know? Because, I mean, this would be a really weak podcast if it were just me yelling into the microphone about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for an hour.
It's okay. I'll come back like, Stephen Hawking?
Oh, God.
I will digitize my voice to stay alive.
As long as you're not coming back like Ghost Dad, I'm good with it. Yeah, we went there. Google that, everyone. Ghost Dad. Yeah.
Still too soon, but it's okay. I'm going to let it pass because he's the moral compass.
That was a thing.
Yeah, well.
So, speaking of compass, let me guide this ship right into it. What did we learn from Jazz in this episode?
We learned that the greatest line in poetry is, let's grab some barbecue and get busy. Mm-hmm. I think that's a life lesson. Lock that in.
All right. Use that line, folks. Because when we started off, we weren't talking about barbecue.
No.
We were talking about voguing.
Yeah, but that's where I say privileged, you know, because you can't be a lazy voguer.
So the whole episode begins with Will and Ashley voguing, which in my mind, even at the time, was the epitome of the most pointless dances that you could possibly do.
Well, technically, is it a dance? I mean, I move my hands all the time, but I don't consider that dancing.
Well, it's kind of like asking the question, if you just have a single drum beat playing quarter notes over and over again, is that music? I know, we just got really deep there.
Yeah, let's just marinate on that moment.
So, let us allow ourselves to assume that voguing is dancing.
Okay.
But a very pointless dance.
I will say that.
So if that's what Will is doing, that's the perfect metaphor to allow Will and Viv to come in to say, Will, you need to join an after-school club.
Death.
Yeah.
That's what Will heard.
Yeah. And it didn't help that before Uncle Phil came in, Geoffrey came in, and Will tried to get Geoffrey to join in on the voguing. And in hindsight, not having Geoffrey vogue was a horrible decision. He absolutely should have joined in the party.
Yeah, as he should have.
Yeah. I mean, if he was down with it, if he was being a hippie poet in the 60s, what would stop him from voguing in the 90s?
Probably pride. I'm going to go with just a lot of pride and self. But that's just for Geoffrey. You know, everybody else, whoever vogued, it's okay.
But what the writers did give us was one of their standard one-liners, because Uncle Phil says to Will, Will, don't you have anything better to do than bother Geoffrey? And Will's response?
I would, but Carlton's not here.
Boom! Right there. Laugh track.
Of course. I mean, but I think that's just the standard development of the brother relationship, because when you have the bigger brother, whether he's older or younger, obviously he's going to pick on the smaller, more corny brother.
Yeah.
That's just the natural order of things.
I'm curious to see if someone finds this in the So Fresh Army and knows about this, if anyone has compiled every insult that Will has made towards Carlton, because this is the internet, people have that much free time. If you have done it, please send it to us. We'll send you a shout out on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think by now it might be an hour long.
Yeah.
Even though we're only a few episodes in, it might be an hour long because I think he's been reaming him since he got there.
That'll be our 151st episode. We're just
Yeah.
going to sit there and we're just going to read every insult that Will has ever done to Carlton.
Back to back.
Just one right after the other.
Yeah.
Rapid fire, and it's still going to take a full hour.
Yeah, I think so. But it'll be worth it.
Yeah, completely. So Will comes to terms with the fact that he really only has two options, which is he can either join a club or get a job. So obviously he's going to join the club.
Yeah, and of course it didn't hurt that, Hillary, his new sister, warned him, if he just stays around the house and does nothing, he'll become shallow.
Her exact words were, if you sit around the house all afternoon and never develop any outside interest, you'll become a very shallow person and you won't get into any of the good nightclubs.
And he won't get to meet Lisa Bonet.
Is there a fate worse than that?
Oh, I mean, if I had a chance to meet Lisa Bonet, I would get out the house and meet Lisa Bonet.
And this was Lisa Bonet 25 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a difference between Lisa Bonet then and now.
I mean, just think, okay, here's a good example. Lisa Bonet then is Zoe Kravitz now. So, I mean, pretty much, it's a win-win situation.
There you go. I'll take it.
I will too.
All right. So Will decides that he's going to find a club. And this is the first time that we see Bel Air Academy in the entire series. Now, a little back history. This was not supposed to be the first time that we saw Bel Air Academy. Because, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, all of these episodes were shot out of order.
Yes.
They decided to mix them around and air them in this big jumbly soup, and because they hadn't really set anything up continuity-wise, they were able to make it work. But because we went in with the assumption from the writers that we already knew everything about Bel Air Prep, things were a little odd.
Yeah.
There were some relationships that hadn't been fully formed. Now, when you come back and we talk about episode 14, which is how they retconned it, because that's when they aired the third episode, where they were actually supposed to have the first day at Bel Air Prep, then some of this is going to make more sense. But for now,
it's just raffle tickets.
Completely. So Will discovers that the sister school with Bel Air Academy, we don't know what the name of the sister school is. I'm assuming it's something along the lines of Our Lady of Perpetual Monetary Gain.
I like that.
I
like that.
And so it is written. They share after-school activities with Bel Air Academy. And they have to do it at Bel Air Academy because that set's already built and they don't want to build a second one for the girls' school. So everyone comes to Bel Air Academy, and Will all of a sudden sees a very pretty girl, Christina, wearing a very short skirt, and he follows her into a classroom where there is some activity going on.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what.
Yeah, he's just surrounded by the one girl he wants and a few other girls he might be able to have.
Yeah. Although the truth was we had probably about 7 to 9 students in there total.
Yeah.
But most of them were just extras in the background. So you had black girl, you had white girl, and you had Mr. Fellows, who was trying way too hard to be with it.
Mr. Fellows, that was just an odd introduction. It's like when you see somebody that knows you, but you don't know them.
Yeah.
And they'll, hey, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I would like to actually read to you. This is the first thing that we hear Mr. Fellows say.
I couldn't say it verbatim because it hurts.
So here we go. Yo, Will, slap me 10. I finally rented that movie Glory last night. Denzel was incredible. The South, man. I don't know. We got to do something about it.
You see, it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's like underwear over the pants awkward.
Yeah, and it gets even better because Will asks if he can join the poetry club for the girls, and Mr. Fellows' response is, yeah, we could really use a representative of the black male urban experience.
Bang.
More specifically, the handsome black male urban experience.
Bang. That's where I'm dead. I mean, you can't do anything about that. You're not set up to win in that.
No.
And we don't even know who this guy is quite yet. I mean, we know he's fairly down with it.
Yes.
We don't know what it is, but we know he's down with it. And he stays pretty hip. Where do we go from there?
We have to at least assume that he's either a teacher or this was the inspiration for the Drew Barrymore romantic comedy classic Never Been Kissed. And he's a 40-year-old man pretending to be a student, which for some reason nobody can figure out that he's actually a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
So he runs Poetry Club.
Hey, I mean, he's down with it. Once we find out what it is, because we know he's not down with the South, because we got to do something about that.
Exactly.
All the way from Bel Air.
Yes.
I appreciate the enthusiasm about it.
So let me ask you this. Christina, our love interest in this episode, reads a poem by Sylvia Plath called Daddy. Would you do me the honors of reading this poem for us?
I will do my very, very best. Panzerman, oh you, every woman indoors a fascist. The boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. Sylvia Plath shortly killed herself after writing this poem. Let the incense burn on both sides. Snap, snap. Snaps. Snap, snap.
Well, don't snap too much just yet. We got a lot more poetry in this episode.
I know, but you have to snap after every poem.
Oh, every single one?
Yes, after every single poem.
Okay.
We never know when they end, so you just snap randomly.
Okay. So, Will is clearly turned on in that this woman might kill me type of way.
Yeah.
But he goes with it.
I mean, it'd be a glorious death.
Yeah, and, she's really the only black girl in the club, so she's immediately attracted to Will and tries to get Will to read a poem.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a poem.
No.
He just wandered in, and then she talks about how, frankly, turned on she gets by strong men reading poems.
Yes. And it's a safe place because she's in a room full of women in Mr. Fellows.
So all of a sudden, Will has a poem.
Yes, by my favorite character, who is real, by the way. We just have not found him in real life.
And what is his name?
Raphael De La Ghetto.
And how was he introduced? How did Will first say his name?
Raphael De La Ghetto.
I think there was a little more question. Voice went up. De La Ghetto?
Yeah. It's like one of those things. Did I just say that out loud?
Yeah. But true to form, he commits it. It's like, Raphael De La Ghetto.
Yeah. I mean, you haven't heard of him?
No, I don't think anyone had, except for Mr. Fellows.
Oh.
Who was apparently so down with it that he's heard of a black poet that doesn't exist.
Of course.
How did this man get a teaching job exactly?
He was down with it.
I suppose he was. So Will is on the spot right now, and he needs to come up with a poem.
In wonderful Will fashion, he comes up with Tick-Tock Clock.
Because that's what you do, You look around. It's like I need inspiration. Inspiration comes from anywhere. Where's the inspiration? I see a clock.
Yes,
I can work with that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Lorenzo, in our ongoing series, Fresh Prince Theatre.
Yeah. Yes. I'm an expert.
Would you please read us Tick-Tock Clock?
Tick-Tock Clock by Raphael De La Ghetto. Tick, tock, clock. The clock is ticking for you. 'Cause the love you said you'd give came up way past due. So dance to the clock rock. Stay on the floor. 'Cause when the ticks turn to tocks, I'll be knocking at your door. Snap, 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 snap. We're not sure if the poem ended, but we just snap randomly. That's just what we do. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
And as far as poems you come up with on the spot, it's a pretty good one.
You know, that it was fairly relevant.
Yep.
It was factual.
Yes.
And it was conceptual.
Yes. And this is one of those scenarios where one of the recurring themes, Will Smith clearly knows just how handsome and good he is. So after he reads the poem and gets the hug from the girl, he mugs the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this episode, he does that a lot.
Yeah, he really does. So after mugging, he's in this situation. He has created Raphael De La Ghetto.
Yeah.
Raphael De La Ghetto does not exist in real life. There is no complete unabridged works of Raphael De La Ghetto.
No.
So Will's got to write some more poetry.
He has to create the chronicles of De La Ghetto in a week.
So then he's going to need a poet laureate
Yes.
to work off of to help him come up with this great inspiration. But all he has is a jazz.
Yeah. But you know, Jazz is fairly poetic himself.
He is. As you've already mentioned in the episode, his best contribution as far as lyrics go is the line, "Let's go get some barbecue and get busy."
Yeah. And I mean, that's conceptual, innovative.
Now, if anyone listening would like to help us with a social experiment, pull up your Tinder account and change your bio to "Let's go get some barbecue and get busy."
I guarantee you, your Tinder account will be on fire.
And please let us know. Send us screenshots, send us pictures, use the hashtag SoFreshArmy, SoFreshSoPrince. Let us know.
And it will work.
It will totally
It
work.
worked for Jazz.
And if we're wrong, then we will give you a free episode of this podcast
Yes.
on iTunes.
Yes.
Or Stitcher if you like.
Yes.
So Jazz comes over and he does the one thing he does better than anything else. He pisses off Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
So let's have another edition of So Fresh Theater. So I will be playing the role of Uncle Phil.
And I would be playing, as they call, Jazz.
Jazz.
Jazz. Yes.
Yes. So, Lorenzo, whenever you're ready.
I'm hungry. When do we eat dinner?
We eat here later. You eat here never.
Looks like you eat here a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah. And Jazz gets thrown out for the second time.
But we just feel like it's just so welcome now.
Yeah. To the point where after the scene happens, Aunt Viv walks in and says, "Will, where's your Uncle Phil?" "Oh, he's just throwing Jazz out of the house again."
Yeah.
And her response, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
It's
just regular. You don't throw people out your house?
It's just commonplace at this point. Completely. All right. And now, what was slightly less commonplace, because remember, we haven't quite figured out who Geoffrey is other than one piece of comic relief. So he comes in when he hears that Will is writing poetry and shares with him the Old Devonshire Poetry Recital of 1963's classic.
What is that?
It was a poetry recital which Geoffrey took part in. And Geoffrey wrote his own poem
Really now?
for it. Would you like to read this poem for us?
I will do my very best. You know, I cannot play with this one. As the crowd rose to its feet, of course, you know, yelling encore. And this is where the poem begins. Cannons to the right of them. Cannons to the left of them. Cannons in front of them. Volleyed and thunder. Yes.
And that was Geoffrey's great poem.
Yes.
And it was a fine
Cannons! Poem. See, the poem might not be over. It might just keep going.
And if this had been a lesser sitcom, then that would have become Geoffrey's new catchphrase.
Yeah, and he would just have to walk in yelling cannons.
And every time he left him, yes, of course, master. Cannons!
In Bel Air, most people would duck when they hear that.
Yeah, they would. Yeah. But after Geoffrey pushes his cannons out of the way, he invites Miss Christina, who has just come to the mansion.
Yeah.
Talking to Will, asking for his advice and talking about how moved she is by Raphael De La Ghetto. I don't know where she got his poetry. I am quite amazed by just how much a person could get away with before Google existed.
I'm going to say the world. You can just get away with anything. I mean, Will created a completely fictional character who, like Pinocchio, just came to life all of a sudden.
Yeah, pretty much. Raphael De La Ghetto took on a life of his own. And it's amazing because nobody thought to go to the library.
No.
Nobody thought to ask someone else in the school, maybe another English teacher, to say, have you ever heard of Raphael De La Ghetto?
I'm fairly under the belief that Raphael De La Ghetto did not make his poetry accessible above the 101 or the 110. I'm just speculating. But, you know, some connoisseurs believe that his poetry never made it above the 110 and 101.
I feel like were Raphael De La Ghetto an actual person, he probably would have been screaming the same way that Geoffrey did. He just would have been doing it on a street corner or a subway where someone would just walk right past.
Yeah, and that's just a life lesson. When you see somebody yelling on a corner, they might not be homeless and crazy. It might be El Raphael De La Ghetto.
Yes, indeed. So the main reason Christina comes over is not just to talk about Raphael De La Ghetto, but to find out a little bit more about him, and asked Will, are you really that close with Raphael De La Ghetto? And Will says, yeah, we're like brothers, but he's kind of a hermit right now. His wife left him back in the 60s, and he's just kind of been sitting there with his afro and his African daisheiki.
Okay. You know, he just chose a style and stuck with it.
Yeah, pretty much. So Christina says, well, if you know him, can you have him come to poetry night next week?
Pump brakes there.
Yeah. Because apparently every poetry club just happens to have a poetry night.
Yeah. Monthly.
Exactly.
I mean, why else would you have a poetry club?
Yeah, where you read poetry.
Yeah, and Will, this is the man up moment where Will is trying to weasel out of something.
Completely trying to weasel out of it. He's like, I can ask him, but I'm sure he'll say no. You know, he just doesn't like coming out. But Christina,
she does what she does best.
Makes out with Will.
Yeah, and of course that changes Will's mind because this is she is the whole reason that he is even doing this wonderful poet laureate poetry, snap, all of the above. I mean, it's really just, it's the moment where you actually have to own up to what you've said. And I mean, he's already created a famous poet, a chronicle of famous poetry, so you have to add a face to the name at some point.
And Will says, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of it was having to do with the fact that the pretty girl just kissed him.
Yeah.
So he was pretty much going to say yes to anything that she wanted at that moment. But then he finds himself in this position where he has to now have Raphael De La Ghetto show up.
And who else does he go to but Jules?
Yes.
Jules. Yes.
One of these days we'll just start pronouncing it with a soft J.
Jules, like y'all gang. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And, obviously, Will and Jazz have become the partners in crime.
Yes.
Over a very short period of time.
Yes, indeed. So, Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil now know about Poetry Night.
Mm-hmm.
So Will is scrambling. And Mr. Fellows, he's got way too much time on his hands.
Yeah.
Because apparently he's called the entire school.
Yeah.
Just everyone in the school.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could probably find some better things to do with his time. I mean...
Like teach?
Yeah.
Grade papers?
Yeah. I mean, I know many teachers. They don't have that much free time.
No. I mean, most teachers I know are busy enriching people's minds, not traveling below the 101 to go listen to Raphael De La Ghetto on a street corner, which is apparently what Mr. Fellows has been doing.
Apparently. So, Aunt Viv is very excited to go to Poetry Night, but Uncle Phil comes in and says, "Oh, now, Vivian, we know that Will only joined Poetry Night to impress a girl. If we go, we're going to cramp his style. We can't do that to him." And Aunt Viv says, "Oh, all right. Well, then you have fun, Will." And Will, for a moment, thinks, Uncle Phil's on my side. I've got him now.
Nope.
It's like, thanks, Uncle Phil. You really helped me out there.
Don't celebrate quite yet. Not yet.
No. Because then Uncle Phil responds, "Are you kidding me? I just didn't want to have to sit through a night of lousy poetry."
Yeah.
Laugh track.
And he knows it's about a girl.
Yeah.
He knows. So just in that inkling where we feel like Uncle Phil is starting to join Will's side, nope, it's not. I mean, you got to think about it. Uncle Phil spends all day fighting and arguing with people as a lawyer. And then he comes home to fight and argue with Will inside his home. I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to do that outside of the home.
No.
It's like a triple threat.
Complete.
I mean, it's just one of those things, It's like when your friends say, "Hey, you want to come hear this band? I love this band." And you don't love the band.
No.
And you suddenly have to do overtime at work.
It's amazing how something always tends to come. Like, the proper response of anything is, "Hey, do you want to come to this? When is it? Oh, it's on this night. Oh, I have to work that night.
Well, they have another show.
Oh, I have to work that night too.
I didn't tell you what night it was."
I know.
End scene. Don't act like you haven't done it.
We've all done it.
I did it yesterday.
But this... Really? Who'd you do it to?
They might be listening, so I can't quite say that.
Gotcha.
I mean, yeah. Well, they know now, but just know I still love you guys.
But Will's in this situation now. He's got to find Raphael De La Ghetto.
But what is his solution? $60. Oh, I'm sorry. $20 and an extra $10 for a Rolex.
Yes, because he asked Jazz. Jazz says he knows a Rolex salesman who sells fake Rolexes, but he only works during the day, so he can come in at night.
Yeah.
But Will has very specific specifications. The guy has to be able to show up, wear an afro and a daisheiki, and read a poem that Will is going to write.
Wait. He has to be able to read?
Yes.
You're asking way too much for $20.
Clearly. And yet Jazz says he can make it happen. And yet somehow Will says, "I've only got $20. And Jazz says he'll do it for that. And yet mysteriously, Will somehow has another $10 so that he can buy a fake Rolex.
But part of me just wants to believe that Jazz just pocketed that $20.
Every part of me believes that Jazz just pocketed that $20.
I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. You never know.
Listen, the one thing that has never explicitly been said in the entire show, but is abundantly clear, is that Jazz is using a lot of drugs.
Well,
And there's nothing wrong with that in Jazz's
No.
world. I mean, this is sitcom world, you know.
No.
It's like he's not shooting up heroin. He's smoking the wacky weed.
Yeah,
and
he's the guy from the other side of the tracks, clearly.
Exactly. So Jazz just spent the money on drugs, and that's okay in this case.
It's okay.
We're not mad at him.
And maybe a little bit of malt liquor, because it is a 90s sitcom. So, they don't want to touch on that, but they insinuate very heavily.
Exactly. So Will just assumes, stupidly, that Jazz is going to show up at poetry night with someone who can do the job.
Of course. They're partners in crime.
Absolutely. But Will is standing there. Christina says, I can't wait to meet Raphael De La Ghetto, and I'm going to be in a very thankful mood to you when I get to hear him read his poetry.
And of course, Will wants to get thanked.
Absolutely. But then Jazz shows up, and apparently Mr. Fake Rolex Salesman got holed up in a hotel while the cops are trying to get him out.
The story of a poet.
And yet, it's one of those moments where if the laugh track wasn't there...
It'd have been very awkward.
Very awkward.
I think there was a lot of moments in this episode where the laugh track wasn't there. It'd be really awkward.
Yeah, because if you take a step back before the scene we're about to talk about and just look at it from up high, you've got Will lying to a girl to try and get some action from her, and a completely unqualified teacher who apparently doesn't know about something called the Civil War.
I do not recall about Civil War.
Yes.
I mean, the South, we got to do something about that. But I mean, I don't think war is the answer.
That's the thing. We kind of did something about it in 1861.
Well, I'm down with it.
Okay.
I'm down with it.
I'm glad to hear that you and Mr. Fellows are down with it.
Yes.
You know what else Mr. Fellows was down with? Helping Will stall unintentionally while he was trying to find Raphael De La Ghetto. So Mr. Fellows gets up and reads one of his own poems, which for some reason is hilarious, despite the fact that it is about his divorce.
Yeah, divorce doesn't sound... It just doesn't resonate with poetry very well.
Yes.
It's just not... It's not inspiring. Attorney fees.
Yeah.
Attorney fees.
So I would actually like to read to you Mr. Fellows' poem.
Yes. Let's have another reading of Mr. Fellows' divorce poetry.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is Ode to Judy. Unfinished Sunday Times puzzle, lying limp on the hardwood floor. The society page spread open. My coffee is cold. It seems you are engaged to a prominent investment banker. Prominent for what? I'd very much like to know.
Is this still a poem?
That's where it stops.
Okay, I mean that
he kept reading, but at that point someone chimes in and says, "This crowd's going to get ugly if they have to listen to much more of that."
I would quite agree with that.
Yes.
My assessment of this poem is it stopped being a poem after a while, and it started being just more Sunday afternoon rage about his coffee being cold and his ex-wife being his ex-wife. But that's just the nature of poetry. Some people's poetry is more heartfelt than others, and some people's poetry is just pure angst.
Yes, indeed. But Will, for whatever reason, and this is one of the things I really do like about the show, is that there is a strong basis in family.
Yeah.
So Will at this point realizes he is screwed.
Yeah.
He has no one. But only one person in his family is there actively trying to listen to him.
Geoffrey.
That is Geoffrey. And so Will says, man, I screwed up. I made up this character to impress a girl, and she's a really nice girl, and she's never going to trust me again if I don't deliver Raphael De La Ghetto.
And Geoffrey, wanting to relive his Cambridge days,
shows up, and as Will introduces Raphael De La Ghetto, Geoffrey appears in an afro sunglasses, and a dashiki.
Now, I'm confused as to where they got this outfit from. This is just me. This is Bel Air prep. I don't even believe they know what a dashiki is, but
Well, what I'm assuming is that someone got the bright idea to do the Wiz at Bel Air Academy, and these costumes were left over from that.
Okay. I can agree with that. I also think that it was Mr. Fellow's disguise to go seek out Mr. De La Ghetto so he could be down with it and look like he's down with it.
I feel like Mr. Fellows in that costume would look less with it and more either drugged out hippie or drugged out period.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one. Mr. Fellows definitely does have some Jekyll and Hyde qualities.
Yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Will wrote a poem for Mr. De La Ghetto, which Geoffrey read.
As he transforms into Mr. De La Ghetto.
Yes. So let's recreate this scene, shall we? So, Will introduces Mr. De La Ghetto.
Yes.
Geoffrey comes down the stairs, and he reads this poem.
All right. Let me transform into Mr. De La Ghetto. Yeah. Listen to the street beat. Hear the sound pound. Plug your ears. Mask your fears. Something weird going down. So listen to the street beat. Listen to the box shock. Listen, or I'll kill you.
Woo! Yeah! Step. Encore!
Yes.
Encore!
Cannons to the left of them. Cannons to the right of them. Volley and thunder.
Which somehow at this point, I don't quite know how it happened, but I guess everyone at this school knows who Geoffrey is.
Which is a weird thing.
Yeah, it's everyone knows who Geoffrey Butler is.
Yeah, I mean, does your butler come and pick you up from school that much? That often that everybody knows who he is?
And you would have to assume that, I mean, Ashley's not going to Bel Air Academy yet. Carlton can drive. Hillary, there's no way she doesn't have a pink Porsche.
No, I mean, I'm just under the assumption Hillary doesn't even go to school. I just think she hangs out with Demi Moore and all of her other famous friends.
Yeah.
All day.
John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah. In that whole crew. You know who they are. We don't have to name names. We're not name droppers here.
No.
So
Christina looks at the situation. She has a legitimate claim. She knows who Geoffrey is.
Yeah.
She's met him. And she's clearly not shallow enough just to look past the help in the house.
No.
And she goes to Will and says, "You lied to me. Why did you lie to me?"
And that's when Jazz steps in to become the superhero.
Yes, indeed. Jazz steps in and says, "My man Will's not a liar. I am Raphael De La Ghetto." So she says the obvious question to him. What happened to your afro and your daishiki?
Oh, I worked all that out in therapy.
So he has to prove that he is Raphael De La Ghetto.
And this is a great moment just within the show.
Yeah.
Because now you get to see Jazz kind of develop a little bit more as a character.
Yes.
He's shown that he cares enough about his partner in crime, Will, to make sure that he doesn't get outed by this girl. And we know at this point that Will mouths his lines and everybody else's lines. So as Jazz is reading this poem, you see Will in the background masterfully mouthing the words to this poem because, well, he wrote it.
Yeah. Well, he wrote most of it. Would you please read it verbatim?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. My love for you is like a river, like a summer breeze. that makes my soul shiver. One look from you is more precious than gold. Let's go grab some barbecue and get busy.
And to Jazz's credit, totally works.
And this, he gets a little cheeky here too. You know, he does the over the shoulder thing that will develop into Jazz's move and says, works every time.
All part of my plan.
Because evidently, before meeting this girl, it was all a part of his plan to steal the girl that Will was trying to get.
Now, is this a bro move, or is this not a bro move in this particular case? Because technically, he did save Will from being a liar, but then he took the girl.
This is very true. And, you know, I think this is one of the borderline bro moves, you know. He did the right thing to begin with, but the ending was wasn't really that good. Not for Will, at least.
Yeah.
But you know what the redeeming quality is? Will didn't really get in trouble for this, you know. He didn't get the girl, but we learned that you shouldn't lie.
Yeah, but so we go back to the Theo moment. We cut back to the house.
Yeah.
Now Will apparently stole the afro from the school.
Yeah.
He's wearing it, and he's giving his reading. Cannons to the left of them. Cannons to the right of them. And everyone in the living room is actually very okay. Because, you know, Jazz got a date.
Yeah.
Carlton stole a poem out of Will's trash bin and used it on a girl, and that got him a date.
Yeah.
And Aunt Viv is just happy because she's getting to indulge in poetry again because she's very well read. And Uncle Phil can't say anything because technically he was the one who pushed Will to join a club in the first place. So this is all his fault to begin with.
Yes.
So he has no ground to stand on.
Yeah. So he just has to sit there and chuckle.
Yeah. And we end on a beautiful but slightly forced Theo moment. Intentionally so, though, I would say. Because Aunt Viv reads a poem called Three Modes of History and Culture by Amiri Baraka. And she just sits there in a single shot and very eloquently in her Juilliard, New York, Broadway theater voice.
Yes, exactly. Just what he did. What he did. Yeah, all that.
Reads the poem.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't end like that.
No.
So then we cut over to a single shot of Will where he says, if you'd like to learn more about poetry, you can reach us at... Nah, I'm just kidding.
You know, because you just can't end too serious.
No.
Not at all.
Not after last week's episode.
No, you know, I mean, we've had some pretty heavy endings to the episode. So, I mean, I think they said, you know what? We'll give you the moment. But we got to reel it back. Gotta reel it back. I mean, the credit music is too playful to really end on that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, what would Benny Richburg Jr. say in that situation?
Boomps would come out.
Yep.
Boomps is here. That's what he would say.
I'm still just trying to imagine what's that like. You know, you've got the director, you've got the script supervisor, you've got the producer. They're all sitting next to the monitor. And then in one corner, you've got the West Philly homeboy consultant whose only job is to say, no, Will shouldn't do that. No, the Philly cheesesteak needs at least 3 more ounces of cheese on it.
And you need to be able to see through the bag, guys. Through the bag. I feel like Benny is, in his mind, says, they can't do the show without me.
And that's when he just slid in and he's like, all right, we got to get me a new title now. It's just, I cannot have this on my resume any longer. If we can turn me into a writer, then I can retcon this and it won't be a problem. But seriously, man, I don't care how much you're paying me at this point. I cannot go to my mother and tell her that I am the West Philly homeboy consultant on the Fresh Prince sitcom.
Okay, we'll do that, but all the checks will say Benny Booms.
Okay.
See, everything is a negotiation, people.
So, Lorenzo, what did we take away from this episode? What did we learn from this episode? And in that perspective, tell me, was this episode trying too hard to get kids to like poetry?
I think it explained why kids should like poetry.
Well, explain why guys should like poetry.
Why guys should like poetry? Because girls like poetry.
And actually, at one point, just to take a step back, Will actually asked Aunt Viv, I get why guys get into poetry for the girls, but why do girls like poetry? And her response was, well, they think with their brains.
Very true.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong at all.
No.
And guys think with their brains. It's just their brain is focused on a different set of anatomy, if you will.
Yes.
And that's pretty much why a lot of guys get into poetry. But to come back to the reason why kids should like poetry, it's because it's very eloquent. It's a social experiment. You know, as we can see, Will has branched out and he's joined a club. And he's made a deeper bond with Mr. Fellows here.
Yes.
And he almost made a deeper bond with Christina.
Yes.
But Jazz did. And really, we learned that poetry brings people together. Even if they are about divorce and cold coffee.
And how would you rate the poetry of Raphael De La Ghetto on a scale from YouTuber screaming into his webcam to Walt Whitman?
I'm going to go somewhere less than Langston, a little bit above Sir Mix-a-Lot. And
where would Antoine Dodson fit into that that bit?
You know, I think he's going to fluctuate.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to give him any set position because I'm not sure if I want him to stay in this conversation.
Yeah, shout out to the Gregory brothers.
Yeah. But I mean, poetry is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn that even though Will lied, he created one of the most famous poets in the Los Angeles region below the 101, 110. And that is a good thing because he has enriched even Hillary's life through poetry.
Yeah.
Even if for a night. So, guys, if you're trying to get a girl, create a fake poet, but make sure that you can follow through. Because if you don't, it's all going to fall apart.
Well, but that's advice that's somewhat antiquated.
Yeah.
Because if we were to do the Fresh Prince of today, so when they eventually cast the Fresh Prince reboot and Jaden Smith finds himself in this exact same situation.
All speculation, but we like it.
Yep. So what he's going to do is he's going to say, I have a poem. Siri, I need a poem.
Well, you know, it'll happen. It's definitely going to happen. I think they'd create an artist.
Yes.
I think that's the way we can fit it in today. They'd create either a pop star or a rapper.
Yes.
Which he could be both.
Yes.
You know, he really could be both.
Yes.
And we would just relive this moment on a much grander scale. I think we'd have roadies and engineers and band members.
There wouldn't be a poetry club today. There'd be a YouTube production club today.
Yeah.
And to be, do you have a comedy bit that we can do? Yes, I do. This one is called Who's on First.
We're trademarking that name
completely
right now. Just so you know.
God, I'm trying to imagine Jaden Smith doing sketch comedy.
I mean, he could.
Yeah.
He could. He's done The Karate Kid. He's done After Earth. He's done music videos that are fun.
Yeah. I'm just trying to imagine him like on Saturday Night Live.
I don't know. I don't know if the chops are there quite yet.
I don't think they are.
I think he'd be too much of a target.
Yeah, but we know he's hilarious from his Twitter account.
Yes, we do. and the fact that he showed up in a Batman costume.
Yes.
I mean, a full-on Batman costume.
Please tune in next week when our guest will be Jaden Smith.
We ran out of time today.
Yes.
I mean, sorry.
It's very sad, but Jaden, we hope to get you on at some point in the future. And I think that covers it for this week.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this episode.
I am too, and I'm happy with the poetry, and I'm happy that I got to reintroduce myself to my favorite poet laureate of all time.
Yes.
On TV, of course.
So thank you guys so much for listening. As always, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Tumblr, we're on Instagram. Please go on to iTunes, Stitcher, subscribe. We're on SoundCloud as well. Like us, leave us 5 stars. Send us your thoughts and your feelings with the hashtag SoFreshSoPrince or hashtag SoFreshArmy, because we love doing this for you guys. We love having this conversation week after week. And also, be sure to tell us if we got anything wrong or if we left out any of your favorite moments.
Of course. And I mean, one of my personal favorite things that I could ask of you is to write your own De La Ghetto.
Please.
Please. And it must end in the let's go grab some barbecue and get busy format.
I like it.
But, I mean, even if we get 1, 2, a million, 10 million, we will read them all.
100%.
In the best one, we might just re-record it for you, and we will become Raphael De La Ghetto for you.
Yes, indeed.
Please do that so I can relive this moment once again.
I'm going to write one.
See, I've already written one. So, I mean, we're 2 down. We're just waiting on everybody else.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you during the week online, and we'll see you here next week.
Of course.
Make sure to keep everything that we do so fresh.
So Prince.
Peace.
Now let's go grab some barbecue and get busy. I had to do it. It was too easy.
So Fresh, So Prince is a production of Let's Go Get Some Barbecue and Get Busy. So Fresh, So Prince is a Bitten from the Apple production, produced by Andrew Apple and Lorenzo Gordon. Music by Griffey Majors.